Well, hello everybody, welcome to Geoff's baking blog. Today I'm going to make a very easy focaccia bread. And now you can flavour this in a number of different ways, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to use some cheese powder, you could use grated cheese, and I'm going to use some herbs to go inside the dough and on the top, and I'm going to sprinkle some grated parmesan on the top as well. It doesn't take too long to make, but it does have to rest for an hour and then it has to bake. But it is very, very simple, and it's about 12 or 13 inches by 9 inches is the size of it, so it's not too large. So I'll go straight on to the ingredients, and for the ingredients I have 428 grams of bread flour, which is 2 3/4 cups plus 1.5 tablespoons. Now you could use plain or all-purpose flour if you wanted to, and that 2 3/4 cups is based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 1.5 cups, 340 milliliters of lukewarm water. I have 28 grams, a third of a cup of cheddar cheese powder. You could use grated cheese or you could leave that out, it's entirely up to you. I have 2 teaspoons of an Italian seasoning mix there, but again you can put whatever herbs you want in, and these are dry herbs, and you can leave them out if you want to, it's up to you. I have 1 1/4 teaspoons, 8 grams of salt. I have 9 grams, 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon of instant yeast. And then I have olive oil, and I'm going to use 2 tablespoons in the dough, 2 tablespoons in my pan, and more to drizzle over the top. So that's 2 tablespoons is 30 milliliters will go into the dough, 30 milliliters will go into grease the pan, and maybe another tablespoon to sprinkle over the top, 15 milliliters. Then I have here my parmesan, which I'm going to grate as I need it, and here I have some mixed herbs that I'm going to sprinkle over the top. So I'll put those to one side for a minute and start to work with the dry ingredients first of all. I'm going to put the flour. You can do this by hand, which is what I'm going to do, but you could do it in a stand mixer or you could do it with a hand mixer, it's entirely up to you. So the flour can go into the bowl, and the cheese powder and the salt and the herbs, and then I'm going to mix those around to get them combined, and it will start to break up any clumps that there may be in the cheese powder. So that's good enough. So then I'm going to pour into my water my instant yeast, and I'm just going to stir that around. It doesn't matter if it clumps together a little bit, it will break up when we work the dough, but it does dissolve reasonably well. And again, you don't have to do this, you could put this straight into the flour, the yeast, but this will get it spread that little bit better, I think. So then I'm going to add into that 2 tablespoons of my olive oil, and I'll stir that around. And then I'm simply going to pour that into my flour mixture. And I'm going to use my Danish whisk, my bread whisk, to whisk that into a soft and sticky dough. And this is going to take a minute or two, no longer than that. So this dough, I have simply worked like this for 2 minutes. That's enough. Like that. And I need to put that into my pan, but first I need to oil the pan, and for that I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons again of oil into my 9x13 pan. And I'm going to brush that all over the surface of the pan and up the side a little as well. Just like that. And I have a dough scraper here which I will also coat with some oil, and if necessary I would put some oil on my hands as well. So we need to take the dough and put it into the pan. So with the dough in the pan like that, I'm just going to wet my fingers with some of the oil, and I'm going to spread it out. And it may not completely cover the pan, but that doesn't matter. That's good enough like that, and it doesn't quite come up to the corners, but it will be more easy to spread a little bit later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that with some plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave it for 1 hour. If your kitchen is very cold, you may want to leave it for slightly longer, but 1 hour will be good enough for me. So I'll leave that for 1 hour, and as the hour comes to an end, maybe 20 minutes before, I should preheat my oven to 190 Celsius. That's 170 Celsius with a fan, 375 Fahrenheit, and that will then bring the oven up to the temperature we need to bake this. So I'll come back in an hour when we'll finish off the dressing of the dough and we'll bake it. It's been an hour now, and my dough has been resting and rising just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drizzle some oil over the top, just like that, and then I'm going to just brush it with my fingers I can see my dough is a little bit thin here, but it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to use my fingers to simply poke some holes in the dough, like that. And then I'm going to sprinkle some herbs over the top. These are my mixed herbs. You can do this or not do it, it's up to you. And then the final thing I'm going to do before it goes in the oven is to grate some parmesan on it. And again, as much or as little as you might want. I think that's good enough. So with that, like that, it's ready to go into the oven. So I'm going to put it into the oven. I'm going to bake it for between 35 and 40 minutes. I check it after 35 minutes, and if it's looks as though it's baked, I take it out, leave it for a few minutes, and then put it onto a wire rack to cool down completely. If it doesn't look as though it's baked, I'll just leave it for 40 minutes. But once I've taken it out and allowed it to cool down, I'll come back and show you the results. So I baked the focaccia for 35 minutes and it looked fully baked to me, so I took it out of the oven and I allowed it to cool down for a few minutes. Then I transferred it to a wire rack and it cooled completely, and I've cut into it, and I've actually already been eating it. I had some with my lunch. So this is what it looks like now, and I mean the colour of mine is due obviously to the colour of the cheddar cheese powder, but no, that's exactly what I was expecting, and it's nice and springy and it has a nice texture to it, as you can see. So it baked up quite well. I'll have a taste of it. So it does taste very, very good. I get the flavour of the cheese coming through, the cheddar cheese powder and the parmesan on the top, and I get the hit of the herbs as well. And as I say, you can mix and match this. You can use cheese, you could use garlic powder, for instance, onion powder, you could use herbs, you could eat, you can put anything in that you want basically, as long as you don't overload it too much. So this is actually a nice quick recipe in terms of making focaccia, because you only have to mix for a minute or two and then leave it to rest for an hour, then put the toppings on and bake it. So it's very easy. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen you will see an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.